Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today we have world number 10, Ellen Perez on. Ellen, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we are setting a record for the earliest I've ever recorded a podcast, and I think the latest I've ever had a guest on because you're in Melbourne where it's 10 p.m. and I am in Fort Worth, Texas, where it is 7 a.m. So if I sound like I just woke up to the listeners, it's because I did. Um,
Yeah, I'm the selfish one here. I wasn't willing to do an early morning.
so you're a more of a night person, not a morning person, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a night owl, that's for sure.
Okay, I kind of am too, but today we made an exception. Um, so I wanted to start with a question that I asked Storm when I had her on the podcast earlier this year about fighting your nation's wildlife. So I asked her if you or Dasha would win in a fight against your nation's wildlife. It was a question from Instagram, I believe, and she chose you. Why do you think she chose you over Dasha?
Because she's smart, that's first and foremost. Um, no, I definitely think I have that little bit more fight in me than Dasher. I don't know. I don't know if Storm's seen it, but my dad was a kickboxing champion. So he
Mm.
actually taught me how to box a little bit when I was younger. So I do feel like I have some boxing form. But yeah, definitely I'm probably the more aggressive type, more loud vocal. So I think she would sense that I'm going to get the job done more than Dasher. So that's why I think she might have voted for me. I don't know.
Who would win between them two against your nation's wildlife?
I'm honestly going to have to back Storm as well. I think Storm's feisty when it matters. I think Storm's also very tactical. She would think it through. She'd find a way to find their weakness. I think Dash is too off with the fairies a little bit. She might hate me for saying that, but she might get distracted by the wind. Honestly, that Dash is another another type of person. But I'm gonna give the love back to Storm.
It's so funny. The lefties are sticking together there.
That's
Um,
it.
okay, so tell us your tennis story. You're in Melbourne now, but how did you get started with tennis? I read something on Wikipedia where you started with a totem tennis pole, which I don't know if that's true or not, but I also didn't even know what that was until I saw a picture of it. But tell us your kind of tennis story.
Yeah, I think I was around 3 years old or so, maybe when my parents gifted me that for Christmas, a totem tennis pole, and it's kind of like a pole that you stick into the grass, and it has a long string and a tennis ball connected to the bottom, and you kind of
Hmm.
hit with like a plastic bat, and it just goes around. It's kind of like the similar, is it tetherball in the US? I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
It's
Tetherball is a
same
thing in the
type of thing,
U.S.
but
and
use
you
a
hit it with your hand. Yeah.
yeah, it's the same thing but with a racket. And I guess my parents thought I had really good hand-eye coordination, so from early, they kind of saw potential. And my dad also loved tennis. He would go play kind of more club level locally. And I guess he really wanted me to get involved. So when I was like 6 or 7, I think closer to 7, he got me down to the local courts. And kind of from there, it progressed into some lessons. And, honestly, I never loved tennis. He used to have to bribe me to go and play tennis with, well, as you would say, candy for me, lollies. But yeah, no, I mean, I enjoyed it, but part of me loved soccer, football way more. So yeah, that was an interesting kind of thing when I was growing up.
Hmm. At what point did you shift towards tennis and away from soccer? And how did that like decision, I don't know, how did you go about making that
Yeah,
decision?
I think over time I progressively chose tennis and lessened the soccer. I was no longer going to training once or twice a week. I was just going to the games on Sunday and just playing. Just because tennis took priority and I had practice and I couldn't keep up with it all. And sometimes tournaments would get in the way.
Hmm.
But I would say around 14 or 15, I think, is when I really gave it up and wasn't able to keep playing it anymore. Definitely by 16, I was no longer playing soccer. But yeah, that's kind of the point where I had to decide. And I think at that point, I remember my dad kind of saying, like, there's more potential in women's sport and tennis. You should kind of follow that. And I wanted to, make him happy. And obviously saw potential myself. Like I did obviously feel like I played a good level. And as I dropped away to soccer, I felt like girls were catching up. And something with me is I like to be the best at what I do.
Mm,
And I didn't like the fact that I was kind of falling behind in a sense in soccer. So yeah, it just made sense to continue on with the tennis.
okay. And then you go and play at Georgia for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about your time there and then kind of your transition into the pros.
Yeah, so honestly, mixed reviews on college. I always would recommend going. I think I had a very enjoyable first 2 years. Went in as a freshman, played number two, had an amazing team. Had a lot of injuries during college. It was maybe my reason I went to college was, to have that option as a backup, have a degree that you can always fall back on. Kind of at the time, I needed some surgeries when I went, so they were able to provide that kind of for free and the full deal. So it made a lot of sense to go. But yeah, college is whatever you make it. You've got coaches who maybe trying to push girls to play injured. You got to find those elements of maybe you don't get along with everyone on the team and stuff like that. But I thoroughly enjoyed the competition side of things. I thoroughly enjoyed, traveling with the team and the whole college aspect. Sports in America is so much different to anywhere else in the world. I feel like they
Mm,
make it so much bigger than it is at times. And I love a reason to party. I love a reason to fire up and, get behind something. So I really enjoyed college and I thought it was a great stepping stone for me. I definitely don't think it held me back in any aspect. There was a big moment kind of after my sophomore year where I was umming and ahhing if I go pro or if I stay one more year. And at that time I had made main draw of US Open and I don't know, I felt this sense of unfinished business at the college and kind of didn't want to let them down. And yeah, it was just kind of that awkward time to make that decision. So I decided to stay a third year. And for me, that's maybe the one thing I kind of was like, do I regret it? Do I not? But I knew after kind of 3 years, I was ready to go pro and transition into the pro tournaments.
mm. So then you transitioned to pro. You played singles for a long time and doubles, and then at a certain point, your doubles ranking starts to kind of separate from your singles ranking. Talk a little bit about that kind of decision, and I guess you call it a switch. I know you still play singles every now and then, so I don't know if you can say you've like given up on it or not, but talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to be a singles player. And I think for a good chunk of time from 2018 to 2022, I was able to maintain my ranking between my career high of 162 to about 240. I was always in that bubble, kind of making qualifying of Grand Slams. And it came kind of 2022 Wimbledon, where I was losing I qualified for Wimbledon the year before, so I was losing a lot of points. And I had won a 60K a few years before that. And with all the COVID situation, there were still points that were hanging on. So kind of in 1 week, I lost 80 points. And at that point, 230 in the world, I think I dropped to 350. And I just started playing with Nicole, and we had a pretty big schedule of Toronto, Cincy, US Open. So a lot of big tournaments where I wasn't going to get in singles. And I missed a lot of weeks of playing singles and dropped back even more, I think, into the 400s. And then I've got this dilemma of how do I play both? And obviously, I'm a very committed person and very loyal. And when I'd started something with Nicole, I was ready to finish it and kind of keep going. And I really love doubles, and it's kind of the first thing that comes naturally to me. And it's what gave me the life on tour. It's kind of when I lose, it's the thing that keeps me in the tournament. It's the thing that keeps me going and keeps me really positive about, my tennis and me. So that was a huge part of me, but I definitely still wanted to be a singles player. So I was trying to balance both. And I just found it was kind of too hard. There's tournaments you're losing points, but you're not playing those weeks, playing doubles. And then there's weeks where you're thinking, do you skip a big event and, skip a paycheck where you're getting minimum 4 or 5 thousand to go make $400?
Yeah.
And at some point, I couldn't warrant it. I was kind of like, I have to go back and hustle in these, remote locations against girls who are willing to die for this, who are equally as good. And, these girls at these tournaments, there's no reason why they're not top 200 level. They actually are. It's just you're all fighting for the same thing, and you come across one of them in an early draw, and it's really tough. And it wasn't a matter of if I thought my level was there. I really do believe I'm still a top 200 singles player. I just, to go back and work hard to get it back to that, it's a grind. And my body's not, able to hold up at times. And yeah, ultimately, I just thought better quality of life and I enjoy it and kind of just made sense to just keep going with the doubles. And I'm trying to keep signing for singles, but honestly, this year I haven't got in anywhere. It's been super unfortunate. And, I played practice sets still against some of these girls. And honestly, I haven't lost a practice set this year. I was laughing about it. I think I've played
Wow.
7 top 100 girls this year in practice and I'm 7-0.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a shame, but yeah, at times I also, as much as I think, oh, I could still do it, when pressure and money and points are on the line, it's very different to practice.
Sure.
Yeah, if I could just go be thrown into the top 100, I'd come back in a heartbeat. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot more than that to get it back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough sport. Um, I wanted to ask about you're known for being one of the most athletic players on tour. You're always able to like run balls down and slide, and sometimes you end up on the ground. Where did you get your athleticism? Is that from one of your parents or both of your parents, or is it something you developed as a child?
Yeah, I've always been pretty athletic. I think my mum was a softball player for Australia, and my dad was a Australian kickboxing champion. So we've definitely had that sporting background. I don't know, maybe genes just very blessed. I've always kind of everyone talks about my calves, and it's kind of something that's naturally always been there. I don't have to work at it, and I think that kind of fast twitch. Most sports came naturally to me. I made, when I was young, I made the Australian cricket team, I made the soccer team. I was decent at cross country and even athletic events, even for like state level. Most things I can pick up, gymnastics, singing, absolutely not. But other than that, I give myself a pretty fair shot at being okay. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's maybe even playing soccer when I was young. That's a pretty dynamic, quick kind of agility sport. And I think maybe that footwork did help me. Who knows?
Yeah. Uh, What, let me see here. Oh, so I was going to ask about the keys to a good slide on the tennis court. And if it's different for hard clay and grass, because you are one of the best players on tour in terms of sliding. You're sliding at the US Open, at Wimbledon, at Roland Garros, all of the different surfaces.
Yeah, Wimbledon's the one I get a little nervous about. I can't say I've done it too
Mm,
much. I've definitely done it a few times, but I think the key is to fully commit. You have to be going fast. The
mm,
moment you're hesitant or you're not going fast enough is when you will stick and fall over.
yeah.
So I think it's kind of having that trust and commitment. I mean, if girls can slide on clay, I honestly believe they can all slide on hard. It's just more the fear and the lack of like either speed or hesitation. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I've done that. Maybe it's also the slide tackles in soccer. Who knows? I think I'm always like to put on a bit of a show and be fancy at times, maybe at my own detriment, but maybe that's the part that I do it. I don't know.
So we mentioned at the beginning you're in Melbourne and you don't get to go home a lot, and I want people to kind of um, understand you and then understand kind of life on tour as a doubles player. Uh, One of the questions from Instagram from Pushkar was, what is the longest time you've spent on the road?
Um, COVID year, I did 8 months, maybe even closer to 8.5. That was tough. I look back now and I just did 5 months on the road, and I was by the end of 5 months, I was like, okay, I'm seriously ready for a break. So I do
Mm,
wonder how I did 8 months, but the alternative was hotel quarantine, and that wasn't really an option. I'd already done it twice, so I was trying to avoid doing it 3 times. But yeah, it's definitely not easy. I'm pretty accustomed to 4 or 5 months on the road as a minimum. I'm almost like if it's not 2 months, it's not worth coming home. I kind of
mm,
like to make the most out of a trip. Flights are expensive, the jet lag, the change of time, it's the weather. If you're coming back, generally it's probably going to be cold in Australia in those times when it's warm everywhere else. And so yeah, you got to be a bit strategic, but at times it's also very needed just to reset. And yes, for example, now if I didn't come home after 5 months, there's another 2 months still left on the tour, and I would have been 7 or 8 months in. So yeah, you got to pick and choose your battles. But I'm definitely a player that can go pretty long without going home.
Hmm. Yeah, how long will you be home during this stretch?
So I get 2.5 weeks. It's pretty
Okay.
lucky that I'm skipping just two tournaments because Beijing's a late start. It doesn't start till
Mm.
Friday, so that helped me get an extra kind of week here. That I yeah.
Okay, nice. Um, so what about like the rest of the season? What are your plans? I know you said you're gonna play Beijing. You and Nikki are in a good spot right now for the WTA finals. Any other plans for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so obviously the Asia swing, I think we go three China tournaments, one Tokyo event, and then the goal is for to make Saudi. I mean, we're in a good position, but we've also seen a good position slip by a couple of points in a couple of years. So yeah, we'll keep going, see how that ends up. And then right after Saudi is the Billie Jean King Cup. So I've been selected for that. So that's in Malaga in Spain. So yeah,
Hmm.
right after that, I'll get on the plane and this time make it in time for the match. It's always been a very tight deadline. It's lucky that we have a bye. Otherwise, I'm sure I'd be facing the same situation. But right after that, I think yeah, that's when the season's kind of done, which is around November 20 or so.
Yeah. So that's an issue after WTA finals typically. Like you're trying to get there for Billie Jean King Cup in time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think finals ends on Sunday and matches start about the Tuesday, and you're
Okay.
crossing continents. And in Cancun, I finished on the Monday because of the rain and everything. So
Oh
I couldn't
yeah.
make my 10 a.m. Tuesday. So I think there shouldn't be crossover unless there's something dramatic that happens. But you're still working with half a day of, for some people, they might have to play the next day after arriving. So it's not easy.
Yeah. It's so crazy. The tournaments just don't work together at all to figure this stuff out. Um, okay, I wanted to ask a couple strategy questions. So you're lefty, which I mentioned earlier, and most teams play with the lefty righty combo with four hands in the middle, but you and Nikki don't. I think off the top of my head, I can't think of any other teams that play with backhands in the middle. Why do you do that?
I think ultimately it's because Nikki didn't want the ad. I actually think I prefer the juice more. And
Hmm.
honestly, more and more, like when I play mixed doubles, I will take the juice. And I've always been more of a juice player. It wasn't until I started playing with Nikki that I went to the ad, and we even started out with me on the juice. But yeah, ultimately, I don't really mind where I play, and I don't know strategically if it's better or worse. Yeah, so I think that's more why. I think it was more to make sure Nikki felt comfortable. She's been more a juice player, and that's where she felt she wasn't as vulnerable.
Hmm.
So I was happy to take the ad and kind of work with what I had. And yeah, there's limitations and there's advantages to both sides.
Sure.
I think it is nice to have the forehand volley in the middle, but to be fair, I like my backhand volley. I think we both have good backhand volleys where it's not detrimental. We can both cross and kind of have that flick where we put it off the court and stuff. So it's not the worst to have it. And I think obviously having a backhand in the middle of the court on return, it's everyone's most stable shot at times, I think. So when they're trying to, use the T serves, it doesn't mean that it's a problem. You can kind of
Hmm.
make, everyone says, the backhand's the one you make more, the forehand's the more dangerous one, I think. So I think, yeah, there's that element that it's not a big problem to have backhands in the middle. And then most people have, if you have a forehand, then you've got the option of going big forehand line or cross. So yeah, we
Hmm.
actually don't mind the dynamic. I don't know going forward in like my future of doubles if that would be always where I happen to stay. I don't know. I'm very, flexible.
Sure. Yeah, I spoke with this was probably 3 or 4 years ago at this point, but I was chatting with Philip Farmer, who coaches Austin Krajicek, and Austin was playing with Steve Johnson at the time. So this had to be like 3 or 4 years ago. And they were playing with backhands in the middle. And I asked him why they were doing that. And he said Well, we're prioritizing the return. They're both more comfortable, especially Steve, I think, and it sounds like this is the case for Nikki too, more comfortable returning from the deuce court. So the righty's more comfortable returning from the deuce court. And even if that means we're creating a slight disadvantage during the third, fourth, fifth, sixth ball of the rally, we want to prioritize returns over the rest of the rally because the return's a more important shot. So that's how he explained it, and that always kind of made sense to me. Obviously, all things equal, if you're comfortable returning on both sides, then forehands in the middle is generally um, what I recommend. But if you're more comfortable returning on a particular side, you do want to prioritize that.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Um,
heard arguments for both, but like for me, having your forehands, which for us is our probably best and most dangerous shots on the outside, it's more
mhm,
likely in rallies that, it's hard to find that middle backhand against us because we, take a big part of the court away. So it's a good
right.
chance in rallying, you're going to have to rally with our forehands.
Mm,
So you can kind of see both sides. I think that's also kind of one of the key things that we like to have.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and then if you are in that rally and you go line, you're going at a forehand volley down the line, which is going to have a little bit more reach. You'll be able to maybe get to the ball earlier so you can hedge middle a bit more since you can reach over there. Um, so what advice do you have for, so a lot of the listeners are club level tennis players. What advice do you have for any lefties listening to the show?
Um, I mean, I think the first thing is everyone says is to use your lefty serve. I think that is a good element. Not many people are used to seeing that spin. But yeah, I mean, everyone is also kind of expecting the lefty serve. I come up against so many players who already are halfway in the sidelines, kind of trying to cover that. And I think
Hmm.
we forget that, a good body serve coming from middle to at them is a great option too. So yeah, kind of confusing opponents, having all the options is a great thing. Um, Lefty. I mean, I think what we love is having different views of the sun. So when we're picking, I feel like we have that small advantage
Hmm.
of being able to put me on the side where there's no sun versus sun. And yeah, I think I might be a bit biased here, but I think we have a little bit more talent or flair lefties generally. So I think being able to be a little bit more versatile. But yeah, I don't know that I play too lefty, to be honest. I think people would say that I actually play a little more traditional, and then I try to bring out
Hmm.
my leftiness at times when needed, especially more on the grass. I'll be a little more lefty or conscious of that.
Hmm. Yeah, people always use the word crafty when they're talking about a left-handed player, and um, yeah, it's strange to me that they're, I guess, like you said, known to be have a little more flair, play with like a certain style. I don't know, more so than right-handed players, or at least like at a higher percentage. So I want to get to some Twitter and Instagram questions. Matt from Twitter asked, some of these are tennis related, some are not. What is Ellen's favorite kind of potato to eat? Baked, mashed, French fried, hash browned.
I'm definitely a baked potato kind of girl. I love a good roast dinner with potatoes in the oven. The other day I actually had duck fat potatoes. I
Okay.
would recommend. So I think I'll go with that. I mean, all potatoes are good. I don't think I could ever cut potatoes out of my life.
Okay. Jari from Twitter asked, I guess he's looking for a specific player for each of these categories. So best serve, return, volleys, and ground strokes on the WTA Doubles Tour.
Okay. Best volleys. Um, I think I'll have to give it to Sue Wei. I think her craftiness at the net and she uses that racket like a wand, honestly. I'm
Mhm.
sometimes I can't even understand how she makes the ball she makes or creates off some of the balls that you give her. Um, I would say best serve on the doubles right now. maybe Elise Mertens. I think she gets a fair bit of power, a bit of pop on that serve. I mean, maybe there's some others lower ranked that I'm not even thinking about. I mean, there's plenty of girls that have huge serves. So I'm just trying to
Caroline
think of people
Dolehide has a
who
pretty big
hold serve a
serve.
lot.
Yeah.
Best returns. I mean, it's hard to go past singles girls. I think I'll maybe give it to Ostapenko this year. I think,
Mm-hmm.
she's one of those ones that no matter if she usually makes a lot of returns, and when she does make them, they're never coming slow. She's,
Mm-hmm.
always giving it a fair whack. So I think when she's on, there's no spot on that in that box where it's safe.
Yeah.
So I think I'll pick her. And then what was the last one? Rallies.
Yeah. Ground
Um,
strokes.
Honestly, I think I might even have to go back to Elise again. I think she's one of the most stable and consistent doubles players who will just lock into cross-court rallies, who can lob you if she's in trouble. You know what you're going to get with her. She doesn't really have too many ups and downs. She's just very solid. Yeah.
Tennis Pig on Twitter asked, who's on your bucket list of male players to DM to be a mixed doubles partner?
Um, we've been trying for a while and it's been going back and forward to try and play with Max Purcell.
Okay.
I honestly thought he's the best doubles player there is for a long time. He's just never, I mean, he plays every week too, but he's never really fully committed to like playing through some events and going all the way at times. So he's never been able to get to one where he probably deserves to be. But I guess this year's kind of shown what he can do. Yeah, he teases me because when I was young and he would have been about 16 or 17, he asked me to play doubles and would get a wild card into AO. And I think I opted for someone else. I think at that time it was either Luke Saville or Andrew Whittington or something. And then I asked him a following year or two, and I think he had kind of made semis one of the years with Luke or something. And he's like, "Oh, now you want to play? Well, too bad," type of thing. And then it was some back and forward. I kind of asked him again. He's like, "I'm not playing." And then last minute, he's like, "I'm gonna play, want to play." And I'm like, "Dude, you're asking me 2 days before the event. Like, I'm set." So it's been a little bit tit for tat and just kind of, I think, honestly, one just screwing over the other a little bit. And even this US Open, I asked him and he's like, "I'm not playing," but he played.
That's so
So I don't
funny.
know, maybe Australian Open this year. We did talk about it. I think he always has such a singles mindset, so it's tough to lock him
Yeah.
in. I think that could be fun. I think he's super talented. We get along really well. We've kind of grown up with one another, both New South Wales players. So yeah, I think that's current. But if we're talking like goats, it's gonna be the Nadal or Roger. Sorry,
Mhm.
Max.
Yeah, y'all should get that locked down for Australia. Y'all would, I mean, I feel like you have to do it at your home slam because y'all would be a really good team, and to have that crowd behind you sounds like it would just be so much fun.
Yeah, well, I think honestly at this point we need some Twitter people to help me or something because
Okay.
yeah,
O-
he's a flaky one.
Okay. Everybody on Twitter listening, definitely tweet at Max Purcell and copy Ellen on it. Um, let's see. State of Sport on Twitter. Congrats, Ellen, for the appointment as one of the player council members. So I didn't know this. So you're going to be on the players council?
Yeah, so I'm joining for 2025.
Okay, nice. When was
It's,
this
I guess
announced?
something sneaky that I did that not many people knew. But I've always wanted to join. I've always been a very vocal, passionate person, and I think I'm very good at articulating my message and point. And if something I don't like, I ask the questions and I challenge them, hopefully in the right way. I'm always, respectful in what I do, but yeah, I've always wondered why things work the way they do. And I think I can think outside the box a little bit. And I feel like, I'm very close and friendly with a lot of the players that I feel the most important part to why I wanted to run was so they have someone they feel like they can go to with their problems or questions or concerns. In the
Mhm.
past, I feel like the player council, I've not felt, like comfortable to go and message a lot of those top players and be like, "Hey, this happened." I just feel like I wouldn't even have their phone number or something like that. So I wanted
Hmm.
to be approachable. I wanted to make a difference. So I guess that's kind of why I felt like, okay, now I feel like people kind of respect me. Hopefully they want me there. So I ran for the spot.
Awesome. When was that announced? Is that pretty recent?
Yeah, so I found out kind of mid to end of US Open. The votes were
Okay.
kind of running during US Open.
Okay, cool. So they asked what's on the table for both Ellen and Gabby for doubles. So I guess do you have anything like on the agenda, or have you even thought about like what you kind of want to accomplish?
To be honest, I really wouldn't know. I obviously I haven't sat in any meetings yet. A lot of it's
Yeah,
obviously confidential and stuff, but
sure.
there's a lot of changes on the men's side in the doubles and they try to achieve new things. And the big part has been, that concern to watch more doubles and get more exposure. I think it's always something we'll try and bring up is, get more marketing, more highlight points of doubles, kind of do these little fun clips with doubles players. And I think, they're doing a better job. Can they do more? Probably. There's even times where finals aren't being televised, pickleball's on or
Hmm.
something. And
Yeah.
it's these little things that, add up and it's kind of like, well, why is it the way it is? And, I haven't got my feet wet in exactly a lot of the things and to understand it all. There's obviously little things in my head. I'm like, oh, I would love this or we should have that. But there's, always reasons to why this goes on. So yeah, I don't really know what to tackle first and, what's going to happen. I'd love to hear kind of where they're at and, what's the things they're working on. I haven't been closely linked to a lot of the men's stuff, but from what I
Hmm.
hear, we don't love a lot of what the men are thinking of doing in the doubles.
Hmm.
But it's really exciting to have another doubles player like on the council, in my opinion. I think Gabby's done great work and she's led the way, and I think all the doubles players love having her there, and hopefully having a second doubles player with an opinion will hopefully be a bigger advocate for change in the doubles. That's for sure.
Hmm. There's like certain spots. I've looked at this in the past, but I don't remember. There's certain spots in the Players Council. It's like a top 10 player, top 20 or 50 or whatever. So is your spot, Gabby's is the double spot? Is yours just like that free spot, or is it another double spot? Or do you know?
It's a singles or doubles spot. So I was
Okay.
running against anyone kind of that was a full member, but
Hmm.
not, I think not top 100 or maybe 50 to 150 ranked because there was a lot of players that, were
Okay.
voting that were, 50 to 100 in the world. So
Yeah.
I was running against Alex Krunic at the time. So
Hmm.
um, I guess whenever the rankings were taken from last year is kind of where you were. So I guess whatever she was ranked, it could have been a singles or a doubles player. But yeah, so
Okay.
I take that spot, but I'm supposed to serve both those
Okay.
players as well as the doubles.
Sure. Okay. Next question from Frame Yourself on Twitter. What do you think of the 2025 calendar with all the 12-ish day 1000 events? Um, they went on to say, does it suck for a player as much as it does for a fan? And a bunch of other stuff. So what do you think about these longer events in the 2025 calendar overall?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's a big fan.
Okay.
Um, yeah, look, the pace staying the same and we're extending weeks of the year to stay at same events. I think ultimately, it's tougher for us. There's so much sitting around time, especially in the doubles. I feel like we get to events for the Monday, Tuesday. We're not starting till the Friday, Saturday. You have days to 2, 3 days off in between at times. It's so unpredictable. And yeah, like I said, if you're kind of making, let's say, $5,000 for being first round, and then you're doing that over 2 weeks, you have no tournament in the second week, or if there is a tournament, it's a 125, and yeah, there's not a lot of opportunities, and I think yeah, for us, the doubles players particularly, we're not huge fans. I don't know about the singles
Mhm.
girls. I guess maybe it does offer an opportunity for them to play both and kind of see how they go or not feel like, I know the chat is that the calendar is too long, there's too many events, too many mandatory things. I think when you do add these 2 week events, in a sense, if players aren't doing well, it's a week that they can rest. Are they
Mhm.
resting? I don't know, because there's always something you can go and do.
Hmm.
But yeah, I know that fans are getting disengaged. It's tough to know who's going to play when. You have to stay at places for longer. It's expensive. Ticket sales, it's always tough. I think the big thing for the WTA and ATP was making more money. I think it's more days, more profit from attendances, things like that. It's
Sure.
very, it's yeah, it's obviously profit for them, but I think there's a lot of downsides that we don't love. Who knows? I don't know more logistics behind it. I'd need to do a little more research, but I
Yeah.
think from a planning standpoint, we're very keen on 1 week events.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. I feel like with these longer events, they should. I mean, I know they've kind of talked about starting doubles a bit later, especially on the men's side. I don't know if they're. I don't think they're talking about it on the WTA side as much. And then also trying out the mixed format as well at Indian Wells this year. I thought was a good idea, and I feel like if they're gonna keep these 1,000 events longer, like add mixed, like so that you have more opportunities to play. And tennis needs to start taking advantage of mixed doubles anyways, because people do love to watch it. So, um, CM on Instagram, what team gives you the most trouble and why? How do you strategize against them?
I mean, honestly, every team at the top gives you troubles. They all have their
Yeah.
elements of, why they're good. Personally, a team that serves super big, I find really tough. I think I found it like, for example, in Cincinnati, Asia and Erin both serving huge on fast courts. I mean, those courts were lightning. It
Hmm.
almost takes the racket out of your hand. The skill and the rest that you're maybe good at is no longer relevant because, you can't really find a way to get into the return games. And then, they pose, great returns. And if they start finding ways to break down one of your partner's serve, you're in trouble. So yeah, I would say teams that have both cannons is it's extremely tough. And obviously, yeah, at sometimes you teams that are singles players, if they can volley, if they can put it all together on the day, and maybe for us in first rounds we're a little vulnerable. They're the teams that we like to avoid at times because they're going to make you play a ton.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I would say those two, but there's so many teams with different elements, different conditions, different days that we don't want to play or do want to play. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, the conditions matter a lot, right? Like I think that's something people watching on TV don't understand. But if you play a team like Asia and Aaron on those lightning fast courts, it's very different than if you played them like on clay, for example, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
certain teams are going to be better on certain surfaces. Um,
yeah. Like I don't want to play Iranian Paolini on clay anymore.
right, exactly. Sandra from Instagram asked, what makes an ideal doubles partner for you?
Um, I think for me, I've always thought having someone that's pretty solid with returns is important. I'm probably that one who's a little volatile at times with returning. So someone that can kind of hold us up in that aspect. And I also like someone that volleys well, that, takes away the big parts of the court and kind of does their job up there. I feel like, I'm hitting big balls, kind of setting them up, and hopefully, as long as they're, capable up there, I think then it can kind of go hand in hand. Yeah, I don't know that I need someone that serves rockets. I feel like as long as their serve is not like terrible, I think that's fine because I feel like I can hold my own at the net under, attack or kind of help them at times. But yeah, I think I want someone that's decently all round consistent rather than having, huge weapons or huge things that they lack or weaknesses.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I talked with Paul McNamee earlier this year, and he talked about how he likes to pair teams up where there's like a dominant player from the baseline and a dominant player from the net. So like with Sue and Mertens, Mertens is the dominant player from the baseline, and Sue is the dominant player up at the net. But there's been other times where she has to dominate from the baseline, like with Stritzova, for example. She's the dominant player from the baseline, and the other's dominant player from the net. And since he said that, it kind of has stuck with me. And I've noticed more and more like players and coaches say kind of similar overlapping things where like in this case, I'm asking you what's an ideal doubles partner, and you're talking about things that complement you, not things that are similar to you, right? So it's something I don't know, anyways, thought like a lot about and makes a ton of sense the more and more I watch.
Yeah, I think the most important thing and is knowing your role on the court.
Mm,
Whoever you play with, you kind of got to go, okay, my partner is very good at this and this, and they like this. So my job is to make up for that
mm,
or to allow them to do what they do best and kind of find ways to work with it. And I think that's what Sue Wei is so good at. She kind
mm,
of knows, okay, when she played with Xinyu Wang, she's like, okay, she's not as
mm,
comfortable at the net. When I have to serve, she's back on the baseline. She's the baseliner. I get in, she has to get into the net when that happens so that Wang can be the baseliner, she can be the one at the net. Similar with Elise, and then like as you said, with Stritzova, it's the opposite. But she can play all roles. I mean, that's having someone like that's pretty incredible, and there's the reason why she's one in the world. But yeah, when you get different partners, you kind of know their limitations, and you got to like work with it.
mm. Yeah, it makes tons of sense. Scott from Instagram asked, "How awesome is UGA?" I feel like we touched on this a little bit already.
Yeah, I mean, there's elements that I didn't love about UGA, but I'll keep that to myself. But yeah, the school, I mean, the money they have, the football program, the girls, everything. I think Athens is a really cool place. I think they have a, great tennis culture there, and we would have up to 5,000 people coming to watch us play at times. And I think that's insane. I wasn't used to having that many fans. And, you walk around campus and people kind of idolize you because you're on the tennis team or every sport, they idolized you kind of thing. And I think that was really cool. I think it's kind of a UGA thing and it's like you have a family for life afterwards. But yeah, I think it is what you make it. That's for sure.
Yeah. So two more questions. These are both from Pushkar. Do you customize your racket?
I do, yeah. I think every pro player is probably customizing their racket.
Yeah.
The rackets that come off the shelf, you know, they're never consistent. And most players are pretty stubborn with staying with what they like. You'll find that players that, when they come out with a new paint job, they've still got the 7 year ago racket. They're just getting the
Hmm.
new paint job on it. But yeah, like I actually go for a light version of the racket, so around 290 grams, and then I will weight it up around 300 or 305, and I kind of put the balancing point where I like it so that I feel like, the head and the is balanced where I like it. But I've also had a lot of elbow issues, so I can't go too heavy. So yeah.
Which tournaments will you take your dog on the road with you?
I wish every tournament, but being Australian, we have like strict quarantine. So firstly, to take a dog, it's quite expensive to fly. But if I ever
Yeah.
want to bring it back to Australia, it's like I think $10,000, and they have to do 6 weeks in quarantine. So
Oh
I
my
don't know that that's
gosh.
humane. Yeah.
What's the reason for that? They can like
Um,
bring parasites or something, or
I
that
think
seems
so. The
weird.
biosecurity and the different,
All right, we're back. Ellen's laptop died there. We were talking about, I think, how to get a dog back into Australia. Very doubles and tennis related.
yeah, but long story short, it's very tough. So if I could travel with my dog, I absolutely would. But yeah, I think it's for the best she stays in Australia.
Okay, so only a few more questions here. We're gonna move to the rapid fire section. What is your favorite tournament?
This is not rapid. Rome.
Your answers don't have to be rapid fire answers. You can elaborate if you want.
Okay, gotcha. I think I based Rome off the food. I think also it has one of the nicest courts, that sunken court. And it's always nice to just be back in Rome. It's a really cool, cute city.
Hmm.
Wish they paid a little better, but
Yeah.
other than that, I think though that or either Indian Wells in Miami, obviously a great 4 weeks of tennis there.
What is your favorite tennis book, if you have one?
Honestly, I don't really read. I have read Agassi's book, and Nikki gave me the book called The Locker Room.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big reader. Honestly, I did enough of that for studying for college.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not my thing, but yeah,
How about a favorite tennis movie?
it's not challenges, I can tell you that.
I just finished it like last week on the plane, and I'm with you.
I don't know if I'm even allowed to say that, but I thought it was so bad.
Yeah.
I swear they had shots on loops at
I
times. Like as a tennis player, you watching it, it was hard to watch. But
yeah, yeah, I agree.
yeah, I don't know. I don't actually have a favorite tennis movie. I don't know that I've watched that many. I think um is it Wimbledon and all those? I don't know.
So last question for you. How do we make doubles more popular?
I think putting it on bigger courts. I think people don't know what they're missing out on. They're just so used to, buying tickets to center courts and stuff. And I think if they saw the product and whether it's by accident or chance, I think they would actually thoroughly enjoy it. I think that's kind of the starting point is getting us on bigger courts and almost forcing people to see it. And then they can
Hmm.
decide whether they like it or not. But yeah, that and a little bit more exposure on social media and things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, when I'm at tournaments and people, I'll be sitting there and listening to people who are watching doubles for the first time. And almost every time, like you'll hear people say, like, "Oh, this doubles is like really fun to watch." Like they love it. It's such a good product. And you're right, more exposure on bigger courts would 100% help that. I said last question, but I do have one more since you mentioned Rome. Do you feel like there's certain, I guess, tournaments or maybe countries that draw bigger doubles crowds than others?
Yeah, I mean, well, the first thing that stands out is Indian Wells. I mean, obviously you
Yeah.
have a little bit older of a crowd, so I think people there kind of play doubles themselves. They kind of
Hmm.
um they either respect it more or it's a little more country club vibe in that aspect, the doubles. So but there's also just obviously a very good showing at Indian Wells. It's packed. So I think people are just there to enjoy the day, have watch good tennis, and there is a lot of big courts there. So there's always going to be big stands and opportunities to watch. So I think that just encourages people to go into the stands. As for overseas in Europe, it's hard to say. Not that I've noticed. I think it's just based on how the tournament's set up. And if they do
Mm.
put you on big courts, you kind of feel like, oh wow, big, there's more love. But it also does depend if you play a singles player. If the moment you play someone like Coco Gauff, people
Hmm.
show up because they know the name. And it's great for us, but it's more than just that. Like, yeah, she's great. She's good at doubles, no doubt. But she was the number one in the world, but she's not even the best. There is others out there.
Hmm.
So it's like if you want to watch her, you should also maybe want to watch some other players. There's other good doubles players. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think everything kind of is the reason why, different weeks it looks better than others.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I want to kind of challenge you on calling Coco a singles player. I don't think the reason people come to her doubles court is because she's a singles player. I think it's because she's a tennis star, right? So
Yeah.
the problem doubles has right now is because they're not getting the marketing or the time on the big courts is there's not really any doubles stars. Like Sue might be an example.
I
Siniakova
would
kind of she still
Yeah, I would
plays
say
some
maybe a Bethany
singles.
Maddox-Sands did a good job of being a star,
Yeah,
having a
Maddox
very big
Sands,
fan base. And I think an element of that comes with all the social media stuff. I think if you do a really good job at,
100%.
the publicity kind of, you're marketing your brand, who you are, then others want to get involved. I think she's done a lot for doubles Bethany, and you still see it to this day. She comes out and there's so many fans for her. She's made a
Hmm.
name for herself. But yeah, it's not easy to do. You need to really go out there, be different, do things that not everyone's willing to do at times. And yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Ellen, this was a ton of fun. We'll do it again, hopefully in person or at least in the similar time zone next time. Any final comments or requests of the audience before we hop off here?
No, but I'm always seeing Twitter posts and things like that. So if you ask questions, any suggestions, keep them coming. I try and be as active as I can. And yeah,
Yeah,
so
you do a great job on Twitter. For everyone listening, definitely tweet out or through Instagram or whatever to make sure Max and Ellen get to play in Australia next
I
summer or
sound
next
like I
January.
sound like the Sander Gill situation here, Gillet, where he was asking me to play all this time.
A little bit
That's funny.
desperate, I guess, but it's okay.
No, we're not desperate. We're just shooting our shot, is what I call it.
Yeah, well, it would be super fun to watch. I think y'all would have fun and the fans would love it too. So awesome. Thanks again, Ellen. Thanks everybody for
No
listening.
worries.
I'll include links to everything in the show notes and I will talk to you all soon.